know we've had a bit of a preamble covering some other films, but
This is the way it goes.
how did you feel about Amazing Spider-Man 2 Rise of Electro? Trademark.
I reckon this is a vast improvement over their first one. I think it's got a hell of a lot of flaws. I'll be kind of curious to see what the general consensus is, though. I thought when it came to the villains, it was kind of hokey and a little kind of stupid, but was really enjoyable. Particularly Electro. I actually really liked Electro, and I thought I was going to hate Electro. So that was a pleasant surprise. The movie, though, feels like it's trying to juggle, kind of like the Spider-Man 3 thing. It's trying to juggle so many different things at once. And every single time they hit the romantic relationship between Peter and Gwen, the movie just sinks like a stone. It's like it slams the brakes on and we stop. I don't understand how many times they're breaking up in this movie, or they're back together. They're on again, off again, on again, off again. It's insane. It's like an annoying friend that can't decide whether they want to be with their girlfriend, and you end up just throwing your hands up in the air and going, just do whatever you want. Just don't show me it, because I don't want to know anymore. And that's the way it felt. And I couldn't believe it, because they are a couple in real life, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone. So you would imagine that they would have chemistry, and they're both very, very good actors. She's very good in the movie. And so is he. But it's just that I didn't feel... Actually, no, to be honest, they do have some kind of chemistry. It's just that what they're doing together on screen is so dull. I understand that he's got some guilt over her father and so on, and we don't want to spoil too much stuff, I guess. But so there's some guilt in the past. But apparently that is enough to make them seriously on again in one scene and off again in another. That I found just relentless. But I had a good time generally. It's far too long, but it does some sort of unconventional things with its length, rather than doing a typical villain encore where you think he's dead but he's back again for another 20 minutes. It was average. I had a sort of good time half the time. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it didn't work for me at all.
Oh, okay.
There are moments and there are definite elements about it that I did really enjoy, but for a lot of it I was struggling to stay awake. It was so dull. I didn't find the Peter Parker, Gwen Stacy thing that boring, as you were saying, but it was more just smug. It kind of just annoyed me. They were just really irritating when they were together, and when I'm talking about when they were together. And it just felt like two really attractive people just being all kissy in public, and you just want to...
That couple that...
You're on the bus and you're like, just shut up, guys. No one wants to hear what you got to say to each other.
Yeah, okay.
I just felt like...
Because he is so cool as his Peter.
Yeah, which is fine now. I mean, once he's got the girl, after the first film, he can be a bit cool and enjoy it and whatever. That's fine. But they were just sort of grating. There's too much plot. This film thinks that it's much bigger and more epic than it really is. Luckily, they did do the villain thing. They balance the villains, because it's really only a two-hander. There's really only two villains in this. The third villain is very, very just on the sidelines to prove a point at the start, and that's basically it. So that was good. I was worried they were going to just overload it with all these different origin stories and get all convoluted and things. But luckily, they kept it pretty square, and that was fine.
They do try and juggle a lot of things,
yeah.
But the villains are handled fairly well.
Well, yes. Individually, of their relationship to Spider-Man, I think they're handled pretty well. But you've also got... So this Harry Osborn thing. Harry Osborn, played by James Franco in the original series. I mean, you had a friendship that was built over a few films with those two. And it was on again, off again as well. I mean, they had their issues. But essentially, they were friends and they connected. These two actors don't connect at all. They're supposed to be childhood friends. Their scenes together are just... It's like they're talking to different people. It's very strange to watch, because they're both really good actors, and they should be able to convey some sort of friendship, even if it is a guarded friendship, even if they don't quite trust each other. There should be something there that makes you pay attention to their conversations, but I just wanted to go to sleep when they were on screen together.
So this is Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn, yeah.
Yeah, he's from Chronicle. He's been in a bunch of stuff lately. His star is definitely rising. People compare him to Leonardo DiCaprio, not only in looks, but he also has a lot of the mannerisms that DiCaprio has. He's a phenomenal actor, but you're right, they don't connect at all. We've got a clip here of basically when they first...
Get reacquainted. So Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn's been out of New York for ages. He's been travelling and at a boarding school or whatever. So he's just come back because his father, Norman Osborn, has just died, and he's taking over the company a la Bruce Wayne.
You know, when my father sent me away, I tried to forget everything about this place. I guess that kind of included you. You ain't gotta explain anything to me, man. We both got dumped. You ever figure out why your parents bailed? My dad left a briefcase. That's all I got, briefcase full of junk. Whatever, I don't know, I try not to think about it.
How's that working out for you?
Perfectly. Nice arm. It's just the wrist, it's just all in the wrist, buddy.
See that smugness there? I think that's supposed to be charming, but that just pisses me off.
Yeah. Well, that's the Spider-Man personality that's now seeped into and influenced the confidence of Peter Parker.
That's true.
Which is a conscious
he needs
decision.
to put up a wall, though. He needs to protect his persona.
Do you reckon it's okay to do that, though, to make him a little bit...
Yeah, he
little
can have a
more
bit of
confident?
confidence, but he's just too suave. It just doesn't work for the character, I think.
Yeah.
So in the first film, there was all this sort of lead, and you were saying about the untold story, and they were supposed to focus on this stuff about what happened to Peter Parker's parents. And then they just ran out of script or something. They decided to shelve that for this film, which was a very loose decision, and it obviously felt it. You felt that there were a lot of plot strands that didn't go anywhere in the first Amazing Spider-Man. So it's a pretty heavy focus in this film, what happened to Peter's parents. And it's just not that satisfying. The film starts off on such a downer. I mean, what do you think about that opening scene on the plane? I mean, that's just so depressing way to start a superhero film.
It's rough. It's hard going. And that's kind of one of the problems I have with the tone of these movies is the original trilogy did have some kind of air of fun to it.
Definitely. Heaps of fun. It's primary colours. It's Spider-Man. Come on.
It is, yeah. I mean,
You don't want to Dark Knight this shit. He's supposed to be a fun character.
That's exactly what they're doing. They succumb to that everything must be gritty now, and so we have to make it all grounded and real and everyone's miserable. But the thing with the Dark Knight was it was an intelligent version of that.
Yeah.
This feels kind of like an impersonation of that kind of thing. So yeah, the scene at the beginning with the parents is just... I actually had a huge problem with it because of the shaky cam. I didn't know what the hell was going on half the time.
Very poorly shot.
Yeah.
So there's a million plot contrivances that really just bug me in this. So I think we'll do a spoiler section so we can talk about some of the details. But basically, my main issue is characters that shouldn't know some information that suddenly know it because the script demands it and it needs to move on to the next section. There's just so much lazy writing in this screenplay to get from point A to point B, and it just started to really just grind. So let me talk about some things that I did like before I get too negative on this. As you were saying, the villains. So Electro has a great sort of monster rebirth sequence, which does touch on great horror movies, which is exactly what Raimi did with Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. He used horror movie conventions to have the birth of the character. And so that's great. So I love that sort of stuff. Electro is a great character. His motivations don't mean anything.
No, that's a problem.
They're completely confused about why he's the bad guy.
Yep.
This is pretty much his arc. It goes, Spider-Man, I love you, but you forgot my name once. Now I'm going to destroy you and everyone. Like, that's it. That's why he's angry. He's a bad guy.
I think it might come down to what is, I thought, a fantastic action set piece in Times Square, where he feels that Spider-Man betrayed him during this scene. I think that's the nugget, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You're right, but I mean that's what they want us to think. But I mean that's not good enough because
I'm not saying it is.
All he saw was that people love Spider-Man, they don't love him. Therefore, he now wants to kill Spider. It doesn't make any sense. Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn.
I agree with that.
He has a well thought out character arc, and it makes sense why he hates Spider-Man because Spider-Man is directly responsible for him not living. His thing is he wants to live. And I think we can all agree that that's a noble pursuit. And I think
it's not noble, but it's a selfish pursuit.
Okay, fine.
It's an understandable pursuit.
Understandable, thank you. Relatable is what I meant. We can understand where he's coming from there. Sure. Electro is just muddled. His character is nothing. However, it started off so promising. The early scenes before Electro becomes Electro with Jamie Foxx's character of Max. Just have you ever seen Scorsese's King of Comedy?
Oh, I love that.
So Rupert Pumpkin, yeah?
Oh, very
Pumpkin rather.
Pumpkin.
You know what I mean?
I know. Yeah, that was what I was worried about with the birth of Electro because the way they were talking about it for the months leading up to it really sounded like they were going to ham it up too much, and they do kind of.
I mean,
really
like that though. I like that hammed up.
It's kind of a touch. It's kind of a throwback to the Raimi films where he's got 8 pens in his top pocket, that kind of thing, where he's over nerded and he's overplayed, but it's actually entertaining instead of being condescending and stupid.
It's also a kind of a scary look at a mentally unbalanced person, though, because although there is some comedy to be had with his fantasies about the world and about people that like him and things like that, whereas in reality no one cares about him whatsoever. But yeah, he is just a very unbalanced individual, and then his descent into genuine madness is a bit tragic, but once again it comes down to the fact that there's no reason for him to be a supervillain.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
That's a shame, because they start off with such a good character who then turns into such a really cool, interesting villain. A villain that we haven't really seen the likes of before.
And visually, they knocked it out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the way that they use his powers and whatnot, I thought all that stuff was shot really, really well, and they had a great just sort of bursts of originality and different ways to show how the character moves and what his powers are. I loved all that stuff. Just on a story level, it doesn't make any sense.
No, and that's the problem. They had such a good thing until it gets up to the point where he needs to turn against Spider-Man, and then you are left sort of wondering why, and you know why, but it doesn't really add up. It's not enough.
Yep.
He doesn't have enough motivation to turn. So then later on, when he's fighting Spider-Man, it doesn't have the weight that it should have.
No, not at
Did
all.
you think though that set piece in Times Square was pretty damn fantastic? Because I thought that was really actually amazing. I didn't think they'd get away. I didn't think they'd have any good action scenes.
I thought they could afford to take their finger off the slow-mo button once in a while. There was a lot of that which sort of annoyed me.
I actually enjoyed that. I know it's very over the top, but
I don't know. I probably liked other action set pieces a bit more than that, but it was interesting. So here's a little bit with just Dane DeHaan's Harry Osborn recruiting Electro, because I like the idea of the villains working together, which is something that often gets lost in these sort of films. They try and cram too many villains. They've always got their individual stories, and they don't seem to overlap, and therefore it gets very crowded. So what they've done here is actually tried to unite them, and I think that was a good choice.
Sedation off.
I'm gonna get you out of here. Alright, but we don't have much time.
Who are you?
I'm Harry Osborn. I wanna make you a deal.
How'd she kill you?
Come on. Think bigger, Max. I'm not the one you want. You want Spider-Man. And I can give him to you.
So Harry Osborn as Green Goblin. This isn't really spoilers because either fortunately or unfortunately it's been put in the trailer. So, and if you got any knowledge, particularly of the last films, and you know that Green Goblin, this is one of the Osborns is going to turn into Green Goblin. So we had, how you were saying before, we had James Franco playing this character in the original movies. It's his father, Willem Dafoe, in the first movie that turns into Green Goblin. And what a weird looking, I mean, that's all done with just kind of conventional, like old fashioned sort of monster suit kind of thing. Like, he looks kind of like,
He looks like he's in a Halloween costume, unfortunately.
Yes, he does.
It doesn't look very polished or professional.
It looks really dumb, but I really enjoy it because I just enjoy it. It's a very Sam Raimi-ish kind of thing. It's
I'd really swear by that film. I think it's got a lot of great... It's got darkness where it needs it, but it's also a fun superhero romp at the same time.
Yeah, it's before all this stuff had to get too serious. And so, yeah, I as kind of weird and funny as he looks in that movie, I did really like it. But I think that this is done better in this film. The way they explain his appearance I actually really appreciated that, and I liked his whole transformation.
Sure, look, without getting into too much detail about the Goblin and things like that, the fact is, in this film, it's more of a genetic issue rather than just a simple costume. And I, for one, as a horror movie fan, really warmed to that. And I loved what they did with both the Osborns and making it more of a physicality thing. I thought that was a great choice, and I thought it worked really well.
Yeah, and when you first see his father, too, in a very early scene, I really loved that.
What a champ.
Excellent guy. I thought it was him at first, and then as soon as he opened his mouth, yep, that's Chris Cooper.
Chris Cooper don't do accents.
Yeah, I know he doesn't. But he had the best movie hands we'll see all year, and that was really over the top and creepy. I really liked this Harry Osborn story, but you're right, he doesn't. he doesn't have the backstory that James Franco had with Tobey Maguire's character, because they had 3 movies to establish that.
Yep.
This is just, he's here, he's a rich boy. They do really try and go to some lengths, particularly in the scene where they first meet, to try and demonstrate some warmth, and it almost works.
I will give you that, yes, they do try. I just think they fail often and miserably.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Another thing that I think is a strength of the film, and once again, this is a strength of the earlier films, is trying to capture the idea of someone swinging through New York City and how that might feel and stuff. I mean, looking at the original Spider-Man now, the effects are pretty subpar compared to what we're used to, but I remember watching that in the cinema and just being blown away at watching Spider-Man swing through skyscrapers. And in here, they've sort of managed to update that sort of same feeling with all the computer graphics they have now. And honestly, it looked amazing. Whenever there were sequences of Spidey just going around, building to building, swinging around, I just thought it was great. I didn't feel quite as elated as I wanted to, because I didn't care about the character, because they were always happening after scenes where I was annoyed because nothing was going on, and then I was trying hard to care about him just having fun and being free, but it was difficult because this script is horrible.
Yeah, they are very, very good at doing that, though. I almost felt like they needed to do that more, because it happens, I think, twice to great effect in the first maybe 20 minutes, where the camera is really behind him as he's dipping and diving, and you actually almost feel a sense of vertigo at some points.
Oh, yeah.
And the screen that we were at, I mean, we weren't seeing it in IMAX. Do you know if it's playing in IMAX? I'm not sure.
Know, actually.
Yeah. If it is, it would be amazing to see it there, because you feel like you are flying through the city.
Yeah, no, Mark Webb does a great job of taking the camera along with Spider-Man, and just the physicality and the blurring of the CGI models, and I guess there are some real people in the suit sometimes. You'd imagine that they do a bit of both.
There must be, yeah.
But it looks great. You can barely see the scenes. I think it's a really nice achievement in CGI, which is something you don't often say, you know?
Yeah, and also tied into that, you've got, like you said, it's kind of hard to care when there isn't much going on, but they do try and show a little bit of that old-fashioned Spider-Man where he's just helping kids and he's just sort of stopping crime. Like, there was a big complaint in Man of Steel that Superman never really helped the common person. He didn't really do anything.
That's a good point. And I didn't mind the montages as well, just his simple crime-fighting montages. I think they kind of worked, and it's something that, you're right, a lot of superhero films don't slow down and just show you the day-to-day of a superhero. They're too focused in getting their story out and quickly in one go that they just stop about the day-to-day stuff of being a superhero. So that is another positive for this film.
It worked really well, and it's very hard to get behind this version of Spider-Man just because of kind of all the politics, and also it doesn't really match up very well. But
it doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, it doesn't need to exist. That's right. So it is inherently, it's coming from a bad spot. But he relates very well with children in this movie. Like, he has a proper, and that's when it's at its best. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. But that really works. Like, when he's just jumping around the city and helping the random kid. It works.
I was just thinking, another problem I had with the original, The Amazing Spider-Man, was, do you remember the sort of set piece towards the end where he has to get to the point where all the people are in danger and he can't get across town quickly enough, so all the crane drivers line up their cranes so he can get there quickly? And I was just thought, all right, so this is really painful to watch because it's so sentimental, and all the crane drivers are working in the middle of the night for some reason, which doesn't make any sense either. But the point is, he uses the cranes to get there, and I just had to stop and think, well, what does he usually do when he swings between buildings? Doesn't he usually just attach his web to buildings? Like, why did he even need cranes? I know we're not talking about this movie right now, but I just wanted to say this whole crane sequence in the first film is redundant because he's always just swung between buildings.
The first one's in New York as well. Yeah. So
Spider-Man is a New York character.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so there is no shortage of skyscrapers to attach to.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I believe also you tweeted something like, "What kind of a crane driver's working in the middle of the night?"
It's
I don't know.
Wrong.
I don't know crane drivers' shifts, but yeah, it doesn't add up.
They're all there. The other thing is he gets a bullet wound or something. That's why he needs the help of the crane guys, and that bullet wound gets forgotten immediately after. And speaking of his super strength, I'm not a massive Spider-Man comic book fan, but I feel I know the character pretty well.
You know, he used to ride a skateboard 20 years ago.
Yeah. But here's the thing: I know he's got enhanced abilities because he's got spider-like abilities, what with the wall climbing and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the ability to be stepped on and squeezed. There's all kinds of spider abilities that are never mentioned that are not actually positives.
But in this film, he catches a police car in midair, not with his webs, with his hands.
Oh yeah, I was wondering what was going on.
what's
When
up with
did he
that?
get the super strength?
When is he invincible? Like, can he catch?
Well, you know, Tom, 25 years ago in a comic, he caught a car. I don't know.
But was that not jarring? Like, I didn't know he could do that.
To be honest, I just kind of flung my hands up in the air and thought maybe I don't know as much about Spider-Man as everyone else. Is that maybe the spider abilities? Do spiders have super strength? They're like ants. Can they carry
several times their own weight? Maybe that's it. But I just thought that was odd. They've never relied on Spidey's apparent super strength ever before, except at that moment where he needed to catch a car in midair.
Yeah,
that was just dumb.
Well, they don't do much of that later on, because when he's being shot at, it's always, particularly if it goes to slow motion, he starts spinning around and avoiding the bullets like he shouldn't really be getting hit.
No, he's very agile. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Oh, no, but what I mean is if he does have this super strength, does it then go on to some sort of impenetrable body? Like,
it just
if you can lift a car, can you be shot?
It reminded me of Superman 4 or Superman 3, where the screenwriters just started making up powers for Superman if it suited the scene.
Okay.
And he'll have him doing something like he puts back the Great Wall of China with his eyes. He just telepathically moves all the bricks and stuff. Just because it worked for that moment, and then it's never mentioned again.
Well, that's one of the reasons I never got... We're off on a different thing here. But that's one of the reasons I never totally got Superman. I think he's all right, but it seems like you can just invent whatever you want for him at any moment.
Well, you can't. They're very strict rules.
Are they?
But the screenwriters, Superman on film has been treated quite poorly.
So from the eyes, he can only do that heat laser thing.
And X-ray vision.
So he can't rebuild matter.
No, you can't telepathically move things by looking at them.
Really?
No.
But he can do a lot of other things.
He can do a lot
so he doesn't have like Darth Vader power.
He doesn't have Darth Vader power.
Okay, all right. We'll get back to Spider-Man.
Back to Spider-Man.
Okay.
So I have some very definite plot point things that I want to talk about. Shall we move into spoilers? Is there anything else you wanted to address about the film at large?
I'm not entirely sure. No, I guess we can go into spoilers for it. It's I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. I kind of didn't. I'm not really entirely sure.
Definitely above the first one for you, though.
Oh, way above.
Okay.
But I mean, like, we're talking sort of small increments. But to be in the bottom half of a pretty bad category, that's the first one for me. Well, the first of this trilogy. Yep. This one, I wouldn't recommend it, but I got to say, I was not angry at any point. I was just kind of bored and totally unmoved by the relationship. So, yeah, I mean, the rest of it, look, it takes itself too seriously, and that's a problem, and it shouldn't exist, and that's a problem. But it kind of almost overcomes them. I don't know how. I mean, Mark Webb made 500 Days of Summer before this, which was a big hit. I didn't mind that movie. I wasn't a huge fan. People were suspect of him coming in to handle a franchise like this because they thought he couldn't do the action. And sometimes the action really works, and sometimes, particularly at the opening of this movie on the plane, the action is just incomprehensible. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty rare though. Like, that plane sequence is a step outside the norm.
It is actually. That's a relief.
I think he's a competent director, and I don't think he's the problem with this series. I think the screenplay is the major issue. This screenplay did have 4 authors, incidentally.
Yeah, no, that's a fair enough point. He does actually handle it very well. I know a lot of people give him credit for handling relationships very well on screen, but I don't think the relationship on screen this time worked here. I'll be very curious to see in a couple of weeks when it comes out elsewhere whether people will find this as moving as they found his portrayal. I mean, a lot of people liked Amazing Spider-Man 1 because apparently they loved the dynamics between Peter and Gwen, and I just found them to be totally non-effective.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I guess we'll move into spoilers.
All right, so stay with us, guys, if you want to hear some spoilers about The Amazing Spider-Man. We'll have a bit more of an in-depth chat. We're just going to finish the show.
We have to finish
now.
the show first.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. Yeah, okay. So what happens here? We normally say what's also out this week, which is Only Lovers Left Alive, which is the new Jim Jarmusch film about vampires, starring Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton, which looks like it could go either way. It looks pretty damn interesting, and I think this came out in the UK a while ago as well. Out on Blu-ray is The Railway Man, Dom Hemingway, and Homefront.
And just briefly, Dave, Criterion have released their slate for July. So we've got The Big Chill from Lawrence Kasdan. We've got Insomnia, which is actually an earlier film in the collection, way back at spine number 47, is getting re-released on Blu-ray. So this is the, I guess, Swedish or Icelandic. It's Scandinavian, and that's the one that Christopher Nolan did the remake of with Pacino and Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, yeah.
So this is the actual original, which I'm pretty keen to check out. There's also a Jacques Demy box set, The Essential Jacques Demy, and Pickpocket from Robert Bresson. That's also an earlier release on Blu-ray for the first time. The other new one that's making a lot of headlines around the internet this week is David Cronenberg's Scanners has finally joined the collection, which everyone's been expecting for quite a while, and that's very, very cool. Can't wait to have that on Blu.
I know we want to jump back into Spider-Man after the outro music, but I just rewatched The Fly
nice.
on Blu-ray,
Nice.
and
How good does it look? It's a good transfer.
it's a really good transfer.
Yeah.
But Jesus Christ, that is just such an awesome movie.
Yes, it is.
It is always amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, okay, here comes the music. We'll be back. If you're listening for the first time, occasionally we do spoilers. We play out the show, we end it like normal, but then we're back to spoil the movie.
Email us at podcast@silverscreensnobs.com and find everything else at silverscreensnobs.com.
Do we start... well, hang on, I guess we should start with welcome back to spoilers for The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
How very formal of you.
Yes. Do we go with the really, really big things, or do we start with the small and work our way to the big?
I don't think it matters. Gwen's dead. Baby.
Well, I guess we just made a choice then. I gotta say, when she's... How did she die, right? She's falling through the thingo.
What do you mean, how did she die?
Well, she's falling through the thing and she's
Yeah.
fine. And she's screaming out and she's yelling and so on.
Did you miss what happened at the very end?
Did I blink?
She hit the ground.
Oh, she did hit the
Yeah,
ground.
he caught her, and
I-
the very instant that he caught her, she'd hit the ground. So he just missed it
Oh, man.
by a split second.
I must have... I don't know if I leant over to get my
It's-
drink or something.
no,
I
no.
really missed that. Was that quick?
It was very quick. I mean, it's supposed to be a blink and you miss it because it's like, is she okay, essentially? Because you're not supposed to know that she just hit her head and she's dead.
Oh, man, 'cause
until
that pissed me off because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, he caught her in time. What the hell's wrong?
Yeah, no,
and then
it
they're
was
trying to
quite-
go for this fake death thing, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden they very quickly go to a funeral.
Yeah, smash cut to funeral. It's
Yeah.
like, oh.
To be honest, they kind of needed to go straight to the funeral because we are so used to seeing characters like this die, and I was totally not invested in her death because I thought, oh, they're just going to bring her back.
Were you aware that that's what happens in the comics?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay,
I've heard that this happens.
Yeah.
I didn't think that they would have the guts to do it in the movies.
Well, I just assumed they would because that's why they would have made her the lead of this reboot, because they were planning to kill her off. They were hoping to build up some cred and then make it an impactful death when they kill her off. I always
Right.
thought they were going to do that. So when I knew that Green Goblin was going to be one of the villains, I thought, all right, it's probably time to kill off Gwen Stacy because they're going to bring in Mary Jane next film.
Speaking of, Shailene Woodley, who we were talking about in Divergent, had her scenes cut out. I believe she actually did film stuff for this, and then she was cut out, and they're going to have to put her in the next movie, yeah? So it's not a total...
they're going to put Mary Jane in the next movie. They're probably not going to... they're probably going to recast, though.
Yeah, you reckon?
Yeah. Shailene Woodley's going to be busy with Divergent now. She's not going to have time to do this, and I don't think it was very amicable anyway. I mean, there's a lot of hearsay, but do you remember I brought it up back when it first happened, and there was a lot of vitriol from idiots on the internet saying that she wasn't pretty enough to be Mary Jane.
Yeah,
and there was
that's
all this
right.
horrible, hideous, misogynist backlash, and
She's
and
not.
then-
She's not a conventional 10 out of 10 supermodel, but she is. I think she's pretty damn attractive, and she's also got She has a personality in her face.
Yeah, regardless,
that is rare
it's a
on
complete.
screen.
It's not even worth giving credence to. But these
No, well, I'm just saying that it's wrong. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
She's not unattractive.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, I think that these idiots on the internet might have had some impact in the producers deciding maybe we shouldn't cast her. So they just sort of decided to push her back to the next film, sort of put on the back burner, and now they're probably going to recast her. I don't think Shailene Woodley wants to have anything to do with it anymore.
It's
after
lucky.
that.
It's lucky that her star is rising, because if it wasn't, and this is the way that her career
Yeah,
might never have
absolutely,
taken off, that would
absolutely.
be incredibly unfortunate.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit.
Sorry, if we're going to move on from that thing.
Yeah, I'm still
just-
talking about Gwen Stacy, but go on.
Oh, you are? Oh, well, the that trailer that we just watched before, there's like a minute-long trailer where it literally says that there is not a happy ending for some characters, as they show Gwen Stacy falling down that thingo, and basically she's about to die.
Also, the main freaking trailer for this movie movie involves the final shot of the film. Like, what's up with that? You know how the film ends with him swinging the thing and the rhino clash?
yeah,
Like,
it
that's
does,
how
it
the
does.
trailer ends. I mean,
Yes.
that trailer shows you every single money shot in the entire film. Those trailers just piss me off so much.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, the whole time after the goblin story and she was dead and it was wrapping up, and I was just like, when are they going to have the rhino showdown? I saw it in the trailer. I know it's coming. It was just boring. I was waiting to tick it off. Anyway, Gwen Stacy. So here's my issue. You know, I sometimes have to read this through a bit of a feminist lens because it is interesting when all of a sudden you do get an independent woman doing independent things, which is what they tried to do very intentionally with this screenplay here, right? I mean, there was a bit towards the end where Peter Parker's like, Gwen, go home. Go get out of here. It's dangerous. And she's like, no, I'm going to stay here because I make my own choices and I'm a woman and, you know, screw you, right?
No, you're not.
It was all very...
Apparently.
Yeah. So that was very intentional. And then it's just kind of sad because this is exactly what happened in like many, I mean, forever really in literature. If a woman steps out of her prescribed gender role to do something else, she's punished, and that's exactly what happens to Gwen Stacy. She tries to be independent and tries to fight alongside the man, and she gets fucking killed.
Yeah.
What the fuck? I'm so pissed off with this shit. This is unbelievable. I mean, this is so backwards. How can we have this in this day and age that they do this to the heroine? I mean, I'd be fine if she was always, fighting alongside, or she never was. Like, if she was just a damsel in distress and this just happened to her incidentally, that's fine. But they make a point of putting her in harm's way because she wants to stand up and be strong, and then they cut her down.
That's what happens when a strong woman stands up. I thought you were going to say when he ties her, or he connects her to the boot of the hood of the car.
No, that's just a bit of screwball comedy that actually kind of works.
Right, okay.
I was fine with that.
So it was when she actually managed to get involved and then
Yes,
dies.
I mean it does lead into that, of course.
So if we're playing under the assumption that she needs to die in this movie,
Yep.
You think it should have been... I mean, she needs to then consciously get involved, because if she's not... I'm not arguing, I'm just arguing for the sake of arguing here, but if she's not consciously involved and then she's killed accidentally, then it's going to be massive Peter Parker guilt, which already sort of happens. We get a Dark Knight Rises kind of 8 years off and come back with a cane thing. But
yes, you're absolutely right. And I did think about that while I was watching it. I just thought, well, they're going to have to make this her choice, otherwise Peter Parker would never get over the guilt. And I think that's what they're going to hide behind if anyone ever pulls them up on this. They're going to say Peter Parker, he wouldn't want to live, essentially, if he was directly responsible for her death. I mean, the fact is, her dad died the previous film. Dennis Leary's cop, and he said, don't, stay away from my daughter because otherwise she might die. And Peter Parker said, okay, and then he continued to date her because he's an asshole, right? So he's already too far gone. But the fact is,
to his credit, he dated her on and off and on and off and on and off. So he was,
he's so noble.
There.
But I'm not saying there was an easy way to kill off Gwen Stacy. The fact is it was always going to be problematic, but I just think the way they decided to do it was just kind of systematic of just patriarchal literature about what women should and shouldn't do. And it just it seems so glaringly obvious. I just don't know why they went for down that route. It was very strange.
I just don't see what the alternative is without then having that guilt problem. I
think the alternative is... I know.
It's hard.
They've written themselves into a corner.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, maybe if they brought her in earlier in the film, that she was more involved. But then, I mean, she's not ever meant to be a superhero or anything, so she's not really meant to be around that kind of action. I guess it's in that sexism is inherent in like how old the character is and those stories. But yeah, if she was brought in earlier of her own volition and she got some more, I guess, action time before dying, that might have worked. But imagine the outcry then when you have a normal character that's not meant to be intertwined with these events, and she is... I hear what you mean. I'm 50-50 on that.
Okay, fine.
I don't really know what the alternative...
The other problem with the emotional weight of this death is it's committed by a character that's been a villain for about 3 minutes. If Harry Osborn had been built up much like the Harry Osborn in Raimi's trilogy was, and you had some sort of weight behind it, that might have been justified. The fact was that Harry Osborn literally just became the Green Goblin about a few minutes before, and then he's responsible for her death. It just doesn't seem to have the payoff the audience deserves. There should be something more riding on this. And unfortunately, because Gwen and Peter's relationship in this film sort of just grated me so much because it was just so airy-fairy and smug and just annoying, unfortunately, this really well executed death scene just didn't work for me on a lot of levels. I think the way they did it, the way that they showed him trying everything he could to save her and failing, I mean, that's great stuff. And that just taking as a microcosm, it does work really, really well. But in the scope of the film, I think it's just a failure like everything else in this film. It just tries and fails, doesn't quite get there.
Yeah. It is weird that he turns to be a villain so incredibly late in the film and is given such little to do.
Yeah.
I said earlier in the non-spoiler section about how they did do something different where normally you have a huge, like 20-minute long villain fight, villain dies, 2 minutes of subdued kind of a breather, and then he's back, and he's back for 15 minutes, and I can't stand that. I was really amazed they didn't do that with Electro, but it was simply to make room for this Green Goblin thing that then was kind of, it felt sort of undeveloped, and it
is undeveloped because it's one film, man, and you can't dedicate all this screen time to all these characters in one film. It's just not going to work. They did a pretty admirable effort of it, but it's never going to work.
The closest they would have got is with the Electro character, and that's still flawed, but they got sort of some of the way there.
You think of the comics, right? And the comics, Gwen Stacy's death was a momentous occasion because she was a character for a very long time, and Green Goblin was a character for a very long time. He was Spider-Man's enemy for such a long time. So when the writers decided to bring these two events to a head and have the Green Goblin kill Gwen Stacy in order to hurt Peter Parker, I mean, that has a lot of weight behind it. In this film, it's just a few moments before he realizes that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, therefore Spider-Man did something to slight him, and he responds this way. It's also rushed, and they expect that death to have the same weight than if we'd been built up and invested in these characters, but we're not invested in these characters. We just simply don't care. At least I don't care.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. This might seem a little bit trivial in comparison, but I was a little bit peeved when Spider-Man shows up for the first time to talk to Harry Osborn, and Harry Osborn, his longtime best friend, doesn't recognize his incredibly distinctive voice.
Yeah, there's no effort to hide the voice when he meets him as Spider-Man.
No, I mean, people always gave Christian Bale's Batman shit, but there was a reason he changed his voice.
Yes.
If I was to jump through a window in your house in a costume and talk in this voice, would you have any idea who it was?
You might be able to put two and two
together.
You
might guess. You might have a reasonable chance at a pretty good guess. So a
couple of other things that are a bit strange. There's a scene with Gwen Stacy in an elevator with Harry Osborn. Harry Osborn says, Gwen Stacy? He knows who she is.
Yeah, I mean, he must have looked her up. I don't know, in some deleted scene where he's at a computer.
Maybe there's a deleted scene, but I thought that was pretty shady. They didn't explain any way how he knew what she looked like or who she was or anything. She would have known who he was because he would have been in the papers and stuff.
Yes.
But all he would have known about her is that there's someone in this huge building and the thousands of employees that Peter Parker was dating.
He must have been interested enough to type in Gwen Stacy in that amazing database they have, but then searches through and flashes little thumbnails till they find the face.
Another thing that pissed me off.
I love that system. It's the best employee database ever.
So Harry Osborn's trying to get in to see Electro to get him to join his evil army of Sinister Six, but they're not calling it that yet. He gets waylaid by the security guards, and suddenly he knows martial arts.
That was bullshit.
What the hell?
Yeah. That was absolute bullshit. That makes no sense. He goes from being this meek,
weedy,
this 20-year-old inheritor of $1 billion company.
Trust fund baby.
Yeah, trust fund baby. He looks like he couldn't lift a feather, and then all of a sudden
he dispatches
in a jail.
Trained security forces.
Yeah, he snatches their taser off. He's getting rid of both of them. He's running through. He's disabling security things. Absolute crap.
My last big what the fuck moment was when the Electro causes the blackout towards the end of the film, and Gwen Stacy says, well, in this event, when there's a blackout, the backup generator's over here, and suddenly she knows about all the city's ideas about how to deal with an event that's never happened before.
Yeah, why was she so
knowledgeable about all these things?
I thought she was meant to have a science background. I mean, they are stretching it a little bit with Electro and his knowledge of these huge, immense power grids.
But but he designed it, so that's
right.
fine.
So they're putting the seeds in the right places there.
The fact that there was no one else in that scene to tell the audience that information, it had to be Gwen Stacy, just didn't make any sense. It's like, what? Where?
It was
hey?
stupid. Electro,
Yeah.
when he gets that suit, when he turns up in a suit, where did that come from?
Well, not
Did it
only
come
where did
from-
it come from, but why does it also disappear?
Disappear?
And reappear like
Yeah.
he does?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I can buy that he's a ball of energy like Dr. Manhattan, and he can create himself and
Exactly
you
like
know,
Dr. Manhattan, yeah.
dematerialize. That's fine, and that's a really effective look. But the fact
really
that
like
his,
that.
the fact that his suit just somehow does that too doesn't make any logical sense in this universe.
No, it doesn't. So if I thought towards the end of the film, maybe he got the suit from the same underground shady thing where they had that power
I
suit
think that's
that Harry
implied.
Osborn's.
Yeah.
He eventually
Which
gets
they
his suit
also
from.
spoiled in the trailer.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they showed you Doc Ock's arms, and they showed you the Vulture's wings. It's just
okay.
that trailer is so awful.
Yeah, right. Well, so if that is where he got the suit, it doesn't make any sense because it's disappearing and reappearing. The alternative is that he, in his spare time, magically made this electro suit that can appear and disappear. And another thing about that whole section of the movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Electro. It's just that these are kind of nitpicky, stupid things.
Yep.
He is being held against his will, you think, sort of, kind of, you're not really sure, by Oscorp.
Yeah.
He says at the very beginning when he's held up like that, you're holding me here. Like, basically, I could get out of this at any time.
Yeah.
But then a large section of the film goes by and they go back and he's still there. And it looks very uncomfortable. Why is he still...
He's just talking big, though. He can't actually get out of there unless he gets some connection to power. And that's what Harry Osborn does when he tases him to release him.
Okay, yeah.
That worked okay for me.
I was never entirely sure what his abilities were and weren't. So when he got tasered by Harry Osborn and he had the power to get out, that's fine. But I thought that he also... you look at him and you go, there's a huge amount of electricity going through you right now.
His abilities were pretty ill-defined because you sort of got the impression that he was going to take all the power out of New York City. And in my head, I was like, well, what do you do then? Like, eventually you're going to take all the power everywhere. Are you going to die then?
Yeah. It's kind of like the Batman Begins thing. I'm going to vaporize all the water, but it's all right because I've got bottles somewhere.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. He can still go somewhere else. At least he crippled Gotham. Like, there was some science behind that.
Yeah, that was all right.
Electro's thing is never really explained. There's a great line where he says at the Times Square face-off where he says, you're going to know how I feel all the time to be without power. And I think he's talking about to be powerless, and I think he's referring to being emotionally powerless, but he's actually talking about making the city literally powerless. And I just sort of got confused. I was like, where are you? What? So what do you want to... I'm really not sure.
Maybe without electricity we all feel powerless? Is that what he's trying to get at?
He actually was just threatening to take away the power and control it, because that's what he was saying to Spider-Man at the end. He's like, I'm going to control the power. I'm going to be a god. It's going to be like, he's going to be the president of the gas company or the electricity company, and everyone's going to pay tariffs to him. Like, that's his master plan. He's like, I have a monopoly on your power.
That's a good plan. I mean, if you can get past the bit where they want to arrest you and send you to jail for the rest of your life, if you can collect that kind of money, it's a very good. This is a very smart setup.
It's like the Bond film, that awful one, Quantum of Solace, where the villain's plan was to have lots of water in the desert and control the water supply, and that was his thing. Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
So I'm glad we can talk about these finer details because they drove me crazy in the cinema, and it's just in of themselves, they're not that bad and they're not that ruining, but the fact is, when you get one after the other, you just can't concentrate on the things that are supposed to matter to you and the emotional scenes that are supposed to be sold to you, because you're thinking about, but why is he electric? I don't know.
Yeah. And why is he so angry?
Yeah,
you really liked him,
most importantly, he has no reason to deeply despise Spider-Man enough to kill him. It doesn't quite make sense.
Well, yeah, they give him a reason. It's just not good enough.
Not good enough.
So speaking of suits, Rhino's suit, where did that one come from? Because it was
made by the shady guy that's putting together the Sinister Six.
Yeah, okay.
Oscorp made these things.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought.
Because you remember the Goblin's costume itself was one of these things. It was like an idea, a prototype. It's Wayne Enterprises all over again.
Yeah.
It's like, here are things that could work in the field. We haven't quite figured them out yet, though.
Yeah. You did see that guy walking past the suits.
Yep.
That's okay. It's just... I guess what I have a problem with is this end, and it did save us from the villain encore thing, but it meant that we had this section of the film, the last 10 minutes feels really tacked on, and I think
we did get a villain encore thing.
Well, I meant not a double appearance by a villain, like
okay.
He doesn't Electro, when he's beaten, he's beaten.
Yep.
Green Goblin
yep.
when he's captured. He's
Yep, fair
captured.
enough.
Then we get Rhino, and that was really that was a weird section of the movie because it does feel there purely to set up to this wider universe.
Exactly, and
which
I'm-
Marvel
I'm-
had a problem with initially
Sure.
when they were trying to do the same thing. It felt awkward when they were trying to set
But
it
I'm
up.
okay with how they did that. Like the bookend thing for Rhino was fine because it didn't bother the rest of the story. The rest of the story could exist peacefully within the center of the movie, and the Rhino didn't really interfere with it. So I was okay with that.
That's okay. It's just that I guess we're meant to. I know they're playing to real diehard fans here,
Yep.
but I didn't understand or know who this shady guy is. It sort of made enough sense not knowing. I would have appreciated to know, but it really did feel like it was 10 minutes pulled out of the beginning of another movie and stuck onto the end of this movie.
That's a fair
I guess
criticism.
that's the problem I had with
Yep.
it. But I also really did enjoy Paul Giamatti's suit because it looks pretty damn awesome. I don't understand why he keeps opening the face and no one shoots him in the head.
You're revealing his face.
Yeah, I wouldn't do
Weak
that
point.
because it's just like, hey, you can shoot me here.
Yeah.
No one does. They're all respectful enough, like how he's respectful enough not to harm a little kid.
It's right. It's like, hold your fire,
Oh, yeah,
guys.
everyone
He's
stop.
revealing his head again. Just wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, you can shoot him now.
But then also when the little kid comes and stands in the middle of the road, he's a villain, but he's not that bad.
I think he's intending to crush him eventually, though. He just takes a while to get there, like Austin Powers in a steamroller. You know, it's very slow. He's just like, okay, you're a kid, and then he sort of takes a few steps, and then Spider-Man turns up and saves the day.
Look, I did like it. It's just it's weird. It's jarring kind of.
It's pretty dumb. How funny was Paul Giamatti's over-the-top Russian accent, though?
Not very good. This is not the best. I really like the guy. It's just
Yeah, me
such
too.
weird casting. It's kind of a little bit too stunty for me because I find him too recognizable.
Well, it'll be nice to see that character fleshed out in the Sinister Six movie, though.
Yeah.
Or at least be there for comic relief, which I think is, let's be honest, that's what he's going to be.
With the whole boxes, like getting pantsed at the beginning. He
Yeah.
is a very, very over the top. I don't really see much room for movement with that.
No, not really.
That character. I
He's
don't know
very
how that's
angry,
gonna go.
and he's Russian.
Yeah, that's
about it.
That's about it. But
Yeah.
we know that he's not because he's a very recognizable actor. I mean, you run into these problems all the time. It's kind of like, it was a little bit hard for me initially to buy Electro because Jamie Foxx is a really accomplished actor, but
Yeah.
he hasn't really done anything like this before, and he's very recognizable. So, but it worked for him.
Yeah, I love Jamie Foxx for the record, yeah.
Can I bring up one more nitpicky thing?
Yep.
So
bring it.
this whole idea of solving the death of the parents, he says he's had this this briefcase full of junk, and he only just decides to look into it and discover what it is at this very point in time when he's had it for what?
Well, it's like the
How old is he
first
now?
film. He tries to find the parents' mystery and he can't, so he gives up. Then he tries to solve Uncle Ben's murder and he can't, so he gives up. Incidentally, he still hasn't solved Uncle Ben's murder.
No one cares about
Wasn't
him.
even mentioned in this film.
Nah, no one cares about him.
Unbelievable.
That was William Shatner, was it?
No.
Who was it?
It was Martin Sheen.
Oh yeah, they're the
Yeah.
same guy in my
Yeah,
head.
yeah.
Martin Sheen and William Shatner.
Bizarre.
Good friends.
All right, so you went to the toilet for a bit, or you left the cinema for a moment, and he broke something in the briefcase, and he found a bunch of old subway tokens, which led him down to the secret supercar.
Oh, okay.
The reason that I had a problem with the whole Roosevelt red herring wildcard thing is that when old mate was on the plane sending away the important information to Roosevelt, he was sending it to the subway car under the earth, which no one may ever find ever.
That's a shitty place to
Why
send
didn't you send
something
it to a
that-
newspaper?
Yeah.
Like that.
It's like putting it in a capsule and sending it to outer space.
Exactly. It's like,
At
it'll be
least-
safe there. My son will find it eventually when he figures out the code.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
that was the dumbest
just-
plan for a dying man to...
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's really
I'm
just
nitpicking
saying
now, but
I really don't want any of this to be discovered, but
plot
if,
contrivance,
Yeah, if we live in a world where contrivances are realistic, then maybe someone will find it one day.
Yep.
And my son.
Yep.
Of all people.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for me. This
Yeah.
film just largely pissed me off.
Okay. As much or less than the first version?
About on par, but for different reasons. Let me
Okay.
just say this film had a lot more redeeming features. A lot more
It does. It definitely
moments
does.
of things that I really enjoyed. But overall, I don't rate this film. No.
Okay, yeah. I a little bit more positive on it overall. One last thing I should have mentioned before the spoiler section is that I really loved the kind of drum and bass rave soundtrack thing they gave to Electro when he's doing his powers, and there are those huge when it almost starts going into a weird fat drum and bass thing. I'm not a drum and bass fan. It's just sometimes those sounds are pretty cool, and it's less music than it is just programming. But it was. I really liked how they blended that with actual sound effects. So it was almost like you're listening to a soundtrack, but it was also the effects. It was kind of like what they did with Gravity sometimes, where they had to fill in silence with a soundtrack that was meant to mimic the events that were going on.
Sure.
I really, really like that. So, I just wanted to throw that in there because I didn't get to before.
Cool.
But yeah, overall, this didn't boil my blood.
Okay.
Certainly not brilliant, but it's fine. I got no idea. Hopefully they just keep learning lessons, because it appears that they learned something from the last one.
And they're going to keep making them no matter what. So that's that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we've got to mention earlier, but we are doing Transcendence next week, the brand new film from first-time director Wally Pfister, former cinematographer, of course. So we're looking forward to that. And thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
I'm finished.